This is what RuneScape could look like in Unreal Engine 5, courtesy of the incredibly talented Zant who recreated the Legends Guild within it. And this is what RuneScape looks like today. Whilst graphics are cool and all, games are mainly about how they feel playing. Like how RuneScape runs on a 0.6 second delay called the tick system, where contemporaries like World of Warcraft and Black Desert Online run on a quarter of that. In fact, an improved tick system for RuneScape actually existed at some point. Sure, it was a tech demo at RuneFest 2019, but it is something jagex played around with. It, however, never saw the light of day. As we never got an official statement of cancellation, comments over the years have alluded to it being out of scope for what is possible without fully overhauling the entire game. The reason I bring it up a RuneFest showcase from 7 years ago and a 3-year-old video showcasing RuneScape in a different graphical style is that recently, with the road to restoration and the new graphical overhauls, the performance of the game have been, well, questionable. Regardless of jagex being aware of the performance issues and partially fixing some of them as of April or May 2026, it still makes people wonder. Is it time for jagex to step away from the in-house custom-built engine and move into a more universal, modern one like Unreal Engine 5? Effectively creating what many people would call RuneScape 4. And presumably allowing them to have better graphics and the ability to improve the tick system. Two major arguments people often give for why RuneScape will never live up to its potential. This all boils down to one simple question. Would a new game engine save RuneScape, or will it be the downfall of jagex? Let me know your thoughts down below. Whilst you're down there, leave a like and subscribe. We're still trying to get to 15k by the end of the year. Enough yapping, I'm Chevalric, and let's talk about the future of RuneScape. Before we get into the meat and bones of this subject and my opinion on things, it's important to understand how this game functions on a fundamental level. Whilst I'm no IT or game dev, one thing I am capable of doing is typing some things into Google and reading about it. I know, very impressive stuff. So what do you need to know? First of all, RuneScape and Old School RuneScape both run on a custom-built game engine called RuneTech. An engine is the foundation a game is built upon. It handles the technical systems like rendering, networking, and game logic, allowing developers to focus on gameplay, design, story, and art. The current engine and client themselves are written using a programming language called C#. Contrary to popular belief, when RuneScape became RuneScape 3 in 2013, or when they switched to the NXT client in 2016, the engine was upgraded to RuneTech 7, not replaced in either situation. So that means that RuneScape still runs on the same foundation today as it did back in 2004, when RuneScape was actually fully rewritten with the release of RuneScape 2. The main differences, however, is that because of the technical upgrades done over the years, jagex is able to do more with the engine than they were in 2004, like better graphics or more complex boss fights. Yet the core technical systems they were built upon remained the same, which there's no better example of than the tick system. A system you've probably heard about a lot, which kinda makes sense as the entire game runs on it. Movement, combat, NPCs, skilling, literally everything in RuneScape. Every 600 milliseconds or 0.6 seconds, RuneScape checks everything and updates accordingly, which is called one game tick. You click on an enemy, the game registers the input on the next check, aka the next game tick, and does what you command it to do, attack the enemy NPC. This means that there's always a slight delay to anything you do in the game. It doesn't mean that you can do one action every tick, it's simply a check. If you click fast enough, as long as there's no conflict in actions, like eating 2 sharks, you can do multiple actions within one game tick. There are all sorts of other rules and exceptions to it, but they are not important for this video. And all you need to understand are the basics here. The point I'm trying to get across is that the entire game runs on a 600 millisecond delay for every input you do, which is important for later. There's just one final thing to cover before we start our discussions, which are the graphics. Not on a technical level actually, but more so on a creative one. RuneScape looks the way it does because jagex decided to go for a certain art style. Sure, the RuneTech engine probably limits him to a certain extent, but even when you look at games made in the same engine, like Unreal Engine 5, there are stark differences in the way they look. For example, Fortnite and Mafia, they look a lot different from one another, regardless of the fact that they are built upon the same foundation. Their designs are completely different, with an art style that complements both those games respectively. This is just as much the case with Old School RuneScape and RuneScape 3, as they aesthetically look different from one another, but are still built within the same engine. So whilst RuneScape moving over to a different one could open up a lot of possibilities regarding visual design, it wouldn't mean it would look anything like Zant's creation. Instead, we would most likely see something more similar to the upgrade from old school RuneScape graphics to the 117 HD plugin graphics, keeping the same art style and identity that RuneScape has, just changing how things are rendered, lit up, etc. The only way we could see RuneScape look like Zant's example, which I think would be really cool, is if they decided to go in that direction on a art style level. Now that we're on the same page about how this game works, why are we even having this discussion? As mentioned in the intro of the video, we have been seeing various graphical upgrades coming with the road to restoration. Lumbridge, Draenor, South of Falador and Varrock all look wonderful now, with actually many more to come. But maybe the most beautiful looking one out of all of them has to be Havenite, RuneScape's most recent area expansion. Sadly, they all had one thing in common when they were introduced. They ran like absolute dog shit due to software bugs. For reference, because I can already see the comments of, just upgrade your PC dude. I'm running a €2,000+ setup here, and I'm getting ridiculous stutters and frame drops in some of these newly updated areas. They look great, but they don't look that great for my PC to struggle with it. Especially when I can max out pretty much any new game that releases, and I can't even do so with RuneScape, as I need to tune down some of the settings to not have a PowerPoint presentation going on in some of these newer areas. Some recent patches have made this a bit more bearable and reduced the stutter and frame dropping by quite a bit, yet it still doesn't take away from the fact I can't run the game at its absolute maximum capacity, even after these changes. For example, whenever I increase game render scaling, my frames still drop to a level that I personally find unacceptable for a game like RuneScape with specs like mine. Don't get the wrong idea here, I do commend jagex for being aware of it and trying to address the matter, but it does worry me that with every single graphical improvement, there will be a whole host of performance issues, making some people wonder if a new engine could give jagex more leeway to avoid such problems in the future. Which to an extent, I have to agree with. It seems like they want to keep adding to the game and making it look better, pushing what is possible, which I'm all for by the way, but it comes at the expense of performance. And is that truly worth it? If the current engine can't handle the newly graphically upgraded areas properly, should you be updating them at all? In the game's current state, I'm slightly hesitant towards the upcoming player avatar rework. Whilst needed and it looking great, I'm scared it will further decrease performance, which when logging into the beta, given it is a beta, does seem to be the case. Personally, I find the game running smoothly a little bit more important than graphical fidelity. I like pretty things just as much as the next guy, but I also kind of like it when I can actually utilize my 144Hz monitor, €2,000 PC, and get more than 40 FPS consistently. Graphics are not the only pain point however, because the tick system is something that many argue also throws off potential new players. The fact of the matter is, even though we got used to it over our decades playing, having a 600 millisecond delay compared to similar games within the category could feel very clunky to someone. Every game has some sort of input delay going on, as nothing can register inputs instantly, but most contemporaries like Black Desert Online or World of Warcraft range between 50 and 150 milliseconds of input delay. Even taking the high point there, that's a quarter of the time RuneScape takes to register actions. This might sound very insignificant to most people watching, as 150 milliseconds is roughly how long it takes for you to naturally blink, but if you put it in perspective, you would have blinked 4 times by the time RuneScape registers an input, versus most other games within the genre. It's hard to describe as it mainly translates to a feeling you have when playing a game, but it does become noticeable, especially to someone who puts in a lot of time, which most of these games kind of require you to do. A new engine could absolutely fix these two issues, but I'm going to be honest here, it would be the biggest risk jagex has ever taken, bigger than the wilderness removal, EOC, and the removal of MTX combined. One of the presumed reasons why the RuneFest example of the improved tick system never saw the light of day is that it was a huge technical undertaking. jagex most likely deemed it not worth their time and money invested for what it could possibly offer at the time, so it never came to fruition. jagex even stated in that showcase that it would require them to redesign the game from the ground up within the current engine to make this happen, just like they would need to do when switching to a completely different one. because, as we learned in the first part of this video, literally the entire game runs on the current 0.6 tick system. When we look at it from a short-term point of view, it would most likely take jagex years of development time and a lot of money invested to achieve something like this, with no one being able to guarantee the success of such a project beforehand. It took them 2 to 3 years to rewrite RuneScape Classic into RS2. So I'd assume it would take a similar amount of time to do so from RuneScape 3 to a possible RuneScape 4. That's not even mentioning that the MMORPG genre as a whole isn't really growing either, regardless of some individual outliers like old school RuneScape and Final Fantasy XIV. Meaning that if jagex would even consider such an undertaking, they possibly risk it all. They would effectively be banking on redesigning the game in such a way that it would appeal to that shrinking wider MMORPG audience, whilst also still appeasing the veteran player base. Yeah, good luck with that. Doing something like this would probably also mean that until this project is finished, we would probably see minimal actual content releases for the live game, which inevitably will push existing players away for a while, as jagex will have all hands on deck for this massive undertaking. I mean, look at the resources the road to restoration is seemingly taking up for RuneScape. We aren't getting that many major content releases this year if you put it into perspective. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of the road to restoration, and I do think it's much needed, but even jagex stated in the announcement of this whole project that they understand that the player base will probably decrease first before it increases. And let's be honest here, we haven't seen that many actual pieces of content this year that are significant to the existing player base. So it's safe to assume that an entire new game engine would be a grandiose risk, which I think would be really stupid to take. Because even if you do succeed in creating what you set out to do, a graphically better looking and performing game that has less input delay when interacting with it and appeasing a wider audience, it will kill what RuneScape is to the veteran player like us. This part might be difficult to explain, as it less comes down to me presenting facts and more so talking about feelings, which I know is scary stuff, that feeling thingy people do. Funnily enough, I do think that this feeling argument is probably the most important one out of them all, and I never see it being brought up by anyone. RuneScape feels and plays the way it does because of the tick system. Yes, it is fundamentally quite clunky, but over the years, we have gotten used to it. Old school RuneScape feels just as much like RuneScape because they are built on that same foundation. And that is the same reason why when you log in after 10 years, RuneScape feels exactly like how you remember it from back in the day. Even after the introduction of EOC, it might feel different because it's a new system, but when you get used to it, it's no different to the old one. Just with abilities firing off at your enemies instead of the same attack with a different number output every time you do so. The best comparison I can give you for this, to bring home the point of the feel of a game, is oddly one to the Call of Duty franchise. If you were around for the golden age of Call of Duty, when the original Modern Warfares and Black Ops were around, you can attest to the fact that Black Ops 1 felt a lot different to Modern Warfare 2, which makes sense, as they were built on separate engines. The core design of those games remained the same, however. You have enemies to take out with your weapons, and you level up in multiplayer by playing the same objective game modes like Team Deathmatch, Domination, and Search and Destroy. The reason they felt different was because of the gunplay, the fundamental aspect of these games, as they were built within different game engines. The same thing will be the case if RuneScape changes the tick system. Yes, it will by design still be our beloved 2001 medieval point-and-click video game where we chop logs, fight monsters, and try to buy girlfriends for 10k, but the feeling of playing it will be different. Maybe objectively better, but possibly losing the identity of what makes RuneScape, well, RuneScape. While some people might have really liked Black Ops 1 and hated Modern Warfare 2, with Activision moving over to a unified engine in 2019, the identity of both franchises kind of disappeared because of it. Call of Duty is just COD, and the subtitles more so the theme than a different feeling game. RuneScape with a 100 millisecond delay could be a fantastic game, but will it be the same one that we grew up on and fell in love with? On top of that, regardless on how you feel about the tick system as a whole and its ability to bring in new players, old school RuneScape has proven as the number 2 MMORPG in the world, and still growing, that the tick system clearly isn't enough of a concern for people to not play the game. And they even embrace it with mechanics like prayer flicking. No matter where you stand on this discussion, or the road to restoration for that matter, we all want the same thing. for RuneScape to be around for as long as possible. While some might believe that upgrading RuneScape to a more modern foundation would be the way to achieve this, I think you'd lose the soul that makes this wonderful game work. Yeah, the tick system is a bit clunky sometimes. The performance needs to be addressed, but jagex has also shown in the past that they can do so without redesigning the game from the ground up. Whilst I personally prefer the 2008 graphical style for RuneScape, if you compare that to either classic or to our current set of visuals, jagex made massive improvements over the 25 years this game has been around for. Look at what some bosses can do regarding mechanics. Chevalric can rewind time and remember your previous save state to cast abilities without the engine exploding. That might sound like a basic thing, but that's actually really impressive. On top of that, the road to restoration, as of April 2026, already has seen a 10% increase in sessions for RuneScape, and people are playing for 5% longer. We'll have to wait and see what this will be like across the entire year, as the first 3 months were also full of some bigger content releases and updates on top of the hype of the Treasure Hunter removal, but it is a promising sign. This does show that improving the flawed aspects of the gameplay clearly has an impact. jagex needs to just be aware of their engine limitations and not try to push the graphics too much out of its scope and be too ambitious with them. They even talked about this in detail in a recent development blog, discussing the fact that they rendered a very high level of detail in places you could not even see it, like behind where the camera is facing. By changing these things, they can improve the game's performance massively, and they have done so already. So there are clearly optimizations to be made within the current engine. And changing the tick system is also not really required. Like I said, old school RuneScape has shown it can work, because they embraced it fully. And if RuneScape starts to do that better, maybe finally upgrade their servers so that when you have more than 300 players on the world, your ping doesn't skyrocket, it might actually not feel half as bad. I mean, look at the combat modernization update. Whatever you might think of it regarding complexity, it does feel a lot smoother than it did before. So no, I don't really think jagex should take the risk of switching to a new engine or creating a RuneScape 4 for that matter. Possibly alienating the hardcore players by not releasing content for a while, with the risk being there that a new engine will not succeed in attracting a decreasing MMORPG audience to the game and losing what makes RuneScape the game it is that we know and love, resulting in losing the veteran players as well and effectively killing what we have right now. But what do you think? Let me know down below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, as we're still trying to get to 15k by the end of the year. My name is Chevalric. See you guys in my next video. Goodbye.